Thank you for tuning into the Sports Peninsula podcast. Coming up, we're kicking off our 9th season of NFL Draft Positional Coverage leading into the April 23rd start of the 2026 NFL Draft in Pittsburgh, PA. In this episode, we'll discuss the top prospects at center. This year's prospect group could be an under-the-radar treasure trove of potential starters. The Detroit Lions are certainly a team that will be exploring options with this position either in the draft or via free agency. We'll cover who we think are the best of the bunch and give a couple of dark horse candidates for the draft next. Now, here is your Sports Peninsula team. Welcome, everybody, to the Sports Peninsula podcast. My name is Dave Brzezinski Drew, joined by Coach Andy Shield as well. Coach, how you doing?
Drew, doing well. Long time no record.
Yeah.
It's been a good minute. Life has gotten busy for everyone. Plenty of things going on. And, we are just amateurs at this. We do not do this for any paper or any coin. So, we got to fit this in when we can. But, Drew, it's our 9th draft preview, which is kind of sort of the ground floor, I guess, if you will. But bigger than that, I mean, it really kind of is, in a lot of ways, one of the things that we've kind of tried to expand on. So this is a lot of fun to do this with you, man. And lots of going on in the sports world, and this is surely starting to take shape. We still fairly early on in the process. We have the combine coming up here. It's basically upon us. And then after that, you'll have a series of pro days. You'll have private workouts, local workouts, local combine. And then before you know it, we'll be here in April and this will become a reality. And we certainly are talking about a position group that really is something that should be keenly aware to Detroit Lions fans for sure. As far as a prospect per se, is there a huge center prospect, as you alluded to? Hard to say that, but are there future starters or long-term starters or Pro Bowlers or even all pros in this class? There very well possibly could be, but definitely some very valuable offensive line pieces, if anything, utility pieces, if anything.
Yeah, no doubt about that, Coach. And let's jump into it, man, because we got a lot to talk about. And like you said, this is an important group for any team, but certainly our Detroit Lions. So, Coach, let's run through who the top 20 guys are.
Down from the bottom right all the way up towards the upper left, we'll serpentine our way through and snake our way back up that way. JaAndre Reed out of USC takes us in at number 20. At 19, it's Nick Dawkins from Penn State. At 18, Mason Randolph of Boise State. And in at 17 is one of Coach Bill Belichick's Tar Heels, Chad Lindbergh from the University of North Carolina. In at 16 is the Buckeyes center of this year, Carson Hinsman. In at 15 is now former Utah coach, now current University of Michigan head coach, Kyle Whittingham's old center, Jaron Kumpf from the University of Utah. And at 14 is a prospect that is someone that you folks take a look at, because this is a guy that's probably going to be a draftable player, James Brockermeyer out of the University of Miami. He played a lot of football. If that name seems familiar, it's because you saw him out there quite a bit this past fall and winter for the Hurricanes. He is in at 14. And at 13 is one of our dark horse candidates out of the Western Michigan University, Raheem Anderson II. We will be talking about him in a little more detail down the road. And at 12 is Mark Petrie from Syracuse. And in at 11 is Jagger Burton out of Kentucky. And Jagger Burton's another guy that you should take a look at because he can play multiple positions.
Yeah.
Into the top 10, another one of our dark horses, Luke Pettibone out of Florida State, came via Wake Forest, but played this past year at Florida State, was an outstanding player for him. Or for the Seminoles. We'll be talking about him in greater detail. And at 9, Bryce Foster out of Kansas. 8, another dark horse, a real interesting one, and that's Sam Hetch out of Kansas State. We have him in our dark horse categories. Folks, things have taken place since we've really gotten the chance to really, honestly, Sam Hetch is probably really a top 3 prospect, and at the centers, we'll be talking about him in greater detail. And at 7, Connor Tollison out of Missouri. At 6, a great player from Vanderbilt, Coach Clark Lay's team, Jordan White. He is in at 6. Into our top 5, we will be going into greater detail. In at 5, from Indiana, the national champion Hoosiers, Pat Coogan. At 4, from staying in the Big Ten, Logan Jones out of Iowa. And at 3, from Saguaro High School in Mesa, Arizona, and the University of Alabama via Washington, Parker Brailsford. Number 2 is Jake Slaughter out of Florida. And number 1, the guy we'll go right into, Drew, and we'll send it back to you, is Connor Liu out of War Eagle, Auburn Tigers.
Yeah, it's a good group, Coach. Yeah, I'll get right into it here with Lou. Talking about him, I mean, he's the number 1 guy on our board. From Georgia, Kennesaw, Georgia, 4-star recruit, team captain at Auburn, started at center as a true freshman, 29 starts in 3 years, only 3 sacks, 16 hurries on 914 passing snaps allowed. I mean, 1,603 career reps at center, freshman All-American, SEC All-Freshman, did tear his ACL in October of 2025, but he is a junior and he's coming out early, and Coach, there's so much to like about Mr. Liu. Let's jump into what you like about his strengths.
Well, he is a command player. He can make all the line calls. He can audible. He can hold the tempo of the entire offense. He's the guy that's, he's very poised and under control in loud settings, and really can help keep that rhythm smooth so the offense is in sync in a real loud setting where you can't hear. He's only 20 and a half years old, and he has almost 30 starts in him at the SEC high Division I level. He has proven to be an elite pass protector. Those are great numbers. 3 sacks with all those pressures. 18-year-old freshman, and he didn't even hardly give up any sacks, or was pretty light on pressures actually, even with only 16 in the career. It's pretty doggone impressive. He can make, he's like I said, he's a decision maker. He's the guy in the middle that can really do the talking for the offense when there's not any time or any way you can even hear any talking to be done. An elite communicator. He's a kid that can get out and pull and screen. He can move. At 6'3", 303, it's a little bit lighter framed, but one of the benefits of that, Drew, is that you usually see a guy with pretty good footwork, and that is something that he does very, very well. His anchor and his pad level are very much in sync. He is only 303 pounds at this point in time in his career, which means he's got to play with great pad level, and he does. He plays with great sync. You can see in this photo right here where he can really, his hips are dipped nicely. Yeah. And he's got a lot of bend in those hinges there, which is good. You can get compact and explosive out of that, and also get your pads underneath people, which is going to be his calling card in the NFL. He's gritty, physical kid, real tough. He had to play at Auburn, which was kind of an uphill battle in this modern SEC. But he's a real physical player. A lot of film on that where he can really kind of hang and bang. And those Iron Bowls, the ones that he was able to play in as a young player, we're talking about 17, 18, 19 years old. Pretty doggone impressive, the physicality that he endured and brought to the table in those games. And I call him a stunt and blitz detective. He can really pick those things up and make those interior 3 make life easier for as an interior 3. He can really make life easier for his guard partners and his pass pro partners by the way he's able to help make slide calls and those kinds of things and adjustments when he feels a stunt coming. This is a real high caliber, high level, really kind of ready to play center, Drew, with the exception of a little bit of a frame issue, and I'm concerned about a knee. Outside of that, Drew, this is an exceptional football player.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, I mean, other than the injury, which by all accounts he seems to be 100% ready to go. I mean, he's recovered. But at the end of the day, that anytime you have a structural injury, whether it's a shoulder, a knee, whatever, there's always concern. But there's so much to like about Connor Lew. But you kind of touched on a few concerns. Talk about what you see as concerns or weaknesses in this game.
Well, he's kind of low ceiling as far as the size of it. He's 6'3", 303. So he's, he there's some room to go up, and he certainly will. I would think that he would get towards that 310 marker, but I think you're seeing a guy that's a 310, 315 player. And 6'3", 310, 315 is not a small human being by any stretch of the imagination.
Oh.
However, you have interior defensive linemen 0-1 techniques and defensive tackles that are 6'5", 360. So, it's just the name of the game. And, he's going to be somewhat limited in his size and frame. So he's going to be on the smaller side. I don't like that he had that torched knee. I mean, you're going to, you're talking about a player in some situations where there's an opening at center. Ours being one of them. Ours, do you trust Connor Lew, who's not even quite 21 years old, coming off of a torn ACL, to be the starting center in a pressure-packed situation that is the Detroit Lions? I'm not so sure that's exactly what we're looking for. I think we might be looking for a little more seasoned veteran or someone that's a little bit more, the root on the vine is a little stronger at this point in time. But nonetheless, he can be a little bit predictable with his technique. That he's very mechanical, and he's a master technician, which can also be almost a fault as well, and that he can be somewhat predictable. So you get somebody that can really study that, can do a lot of counter moves and secondary moves on the pass rush, could give him a little bit of trouble. And that is something that he's had. And the guys that can really knock it back and bull rush can really pound. DJ Reader had some of that capability. Guys that play and can rush the passer that way, like Jaden Davis, with the Eagles and those kinds of things, and just smash you backwards, into there. That could be trouble with that kind of frame as well. So the big time defensive tackles and the real elite pass rushers are going to give Connor Lew some trouble out of the gets. Can that knee stay healthy too before that becomes an issue within the rookie deal? Outside of that, Connor Lew's got way more pluses than minuses, Drew.
Yeah, no, totally agree. Like him a lot. As a Lions fan, from a Lions perspective, I don't feel comfortable because of those question marks. Now, maybe we'll get answers to those at the combine and in the pro days, and things will come to light more. But at the end of the day, I'm comfortable where we have him ranked, but I'm not sure he'll be that first guy off the board at this position, quite frankly. But we'll see. All right, let's talk about our number 2 center on the board. Coach, why don't you introduce it for us?
And at 2 for the Sports Peninsula podcast center rankings is Jake Slaughter out of the University of Florida for the Gators. He's a 5th-year player, played 5 years of college football, 6'4", 303. So a little longer drinker of water than we had with Mr. Connor Lew over in Auburn, Alabama. But here in Gainesville, Florida, Jake Slaughter in at 6'4", 303. Comes from rural Florida, Spar, Florida. Kind of out in the sticks of Florida. He played a lot of football. Played in 51 games and had 33 starts for the Gators. So he's a developed player. He's a guy that stayed. He didn't do a lot of hopping around in the portal. So I think there's some things that can be said about that. He is a guy that is coachable and willing to work. Only 4 career sacks and 3 QB hits and 15 hurries in 1,152 snaps, passing snaps in his career. Over 2,100 snaps at center for the Florida Gators. He's a 2-time All-SEC product as well as a 2-time All-American. So this is a decorated guy, maybe even a little more decorated than Connor Lew, Drew. He's a little older. Yeah. But a guy that's been around the block a couple more times, as they would say. But he's pretty decorated in those trips around the block.
Yeah, no doubt. And playing in the SEC, you're going to get tested, right? So let's talk about his strengths and really what we like about him. He's a real good climber in the run game. So he gets to the second level quickly, and he understands what needs to happen there. So important, especially we're Lions fans, right? That power run game, man. You've got to be able to get to the second level. Jake Slaughter's very good at it. He's another elite caliber pass protector at center. A lot of the guys we're going to talk about are elite pass protectors, and certainly Jake Slaughter is one of them. He's shown great durability in his career. He's rarely leaving the field on offense, and you alluded to that 2,100 snaps in his career. He has outstanding experience. He's a sleuth of the stunt and blitz, and that's so important, man. That center's got to be, in essence, the quarterback of the line. They're calling out the schemes, the right coach, and they've got to be able to recognize very quickly, because the quarterback's doing this thing as well, trying to recognize the coverage and understand what the route tree is going to be, what zone man, etc. Slaughter's really good at that. It's a high football IQ. He moves well, and he has the ability to pull. Very important. Two-time captain. That's important. A leader. So not only is he able to recognize and understand stunts and blitzes, but he's also somebody that's very, he leads not only by example, but vocally. He's a very, very respected player out there. That's important. He's a leader that can be tasked with responsibility. So important, Coach. And Jake Slaughter's just a lot to like about him, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, this just even in this photo, you can just see that his frame, his anchor, those legs, just the depth and the length of them, as well as they sit higher. They're just bigger. They're bigger. There's more of an anchor there than with Connor Lew. So this is a guy that probably plays with a little heavier run anchor to begin with. He just looks a little bit bigger, and that frame can probably take on a good, just about 20 pounds, I bet, pretty comfortably. And then if you're talking 6'4", 320, you're talking about a grown man playing center for you in the NFL. But Drew, there are a few things that there's a little bit to beware of here, Drew. What are we looking at with Jake Slaughter that we might be looking at needing some improvement upon?
Yeah, and the first thing that hits is something you'll hear a lot. This is something a lot of O-linemen have to overcome, and they get over aggressive, losing their technique. Whether that's getting a little sloppy with the footwork or with the hand technique, or maybe starting the pad level becomes an issue. So again, with Slaughter, it's not over fatigue; it's more of aggression. And Coach, I want to touch on it real quick. That's something you can coach out of a player, correct?
Oh yeah, I mean, you work on technique and you refine technique, and that's where Hank Fraley is considered to be one of the best in the league about refining and minimizing movement and just little technical nuances and wrinkles that they can provide that go a long way and became a pro skilled tradesman as a center, so to speak.
No, that's a great point. And Jake Slaughter certainly is a very intelligent player, and he's by all accounts very coachable and a leader. So I definitely something he has to work on, but something that can be worked on and worked out. So that it's a concern, but it's something he can certainly fix. He has struggled with elite hand fighters, so he's going to see a lot of that certainly in his first training camp. He's going to see a lot of that, and he's going to have to understand what he needs to do to counter that. He's got to work on that. Trigger and speed concerns against more athletic defensive linemen. Yeah, that can be an issue with Jake Slaughter. What I do like is he's shown that he is able to handle the bigger D tackles. So when there's certainly maybe a quicker or a smaller D tackle in front of him, he's going to have to be able to respond a little bit better on that. Something he can work on. Now he's got a longer frame, and with mass, it could lend to a lighter anchor. But you made a great point, Coach. When you look at this picture, he's got a really good base. So hopefully he's able to, when he does gain that weight, and he will need to put on like 15, 20 pounds, and likely make sure that's balanced out, right? Because and a lot of times you'll see offensive linemen that are really top heavy, where I think with Slaughter, he's got to make sure, especially with hand technique, he's got to work on the arms and shoulders and chest a little bit more. Not that he's a small guy, I'm not saying that, but like you said, you got guys like Davis in Philadelphia are coming at you at 350 pounds with speed. You got to be able to handle that, and I think you'll be able to get there, but it's not going to happen overnight. You can attack too hard and lose balance. So again, that's more to the aggression thing. So he's going to have to play with controlled fury, with controlled vengeance, so to speak. And he's going to need a little refinement ahead of the big one-on-one matchup. So again, he adjusting to the pro game, adjusting to the bigger D tackles. Thankfully, he's been in the SEC, so he's seen a lot of these guys in the past, coach. So a lot to like about Jake Slaughter, but certainly some things he needs to clean up.
Yeah, and the frame is long, but it's not narrow. So there's a lot to like there in regards to his frame. He can't be a hand battler. He can't try to pick fights and be not in like personal battles in the way like a hockey player. I'm not talking about that like a Bertuzzi type that gets involved with the wrong things. That's not an issue for Jake Slaughter. He's not like a penalty guy but just you can kind of get suckered into good hands. He can kind of be triggered by elite athletes. And on top of it, he's going to have a learning curve with some of those, Jordan Davis type pounders too, that could, try to put you right in through the quarterback. So Chris Jones, those kinds of guys. So, he's just going to, got some growing pains that he's going to have to work on, especially in the one-on-one game. But in many, many ways, Drew, if I was Brad Holmes, I'm almost wondering where Jake Slaughter stands in regards to Connor Lew.
Very good point. I personally would be, the more I've studied these guys, I'm a little more comfortable at this point with Slaughter. If you're going to go day one, I don't know. Could happen. Very well could happen. I don't know. Not likely, but it could happen. I'd be more interested in Slaughter and for the Lions than Lew. I agree with you. But overall, I think they're both going to be really good players, but we will see. It's going to be interesting. Coming up for our number 3 prospect coach is Parker Brailsford out of the University of Alabama, the 6'2", 290-pound redshirt junior, our number 3 prospect. He's from Mesa, Arizona, Saguaro High School, transferred from Washington. He's a freshman All Pac-12, All-American at Washington, and All-SEC and All-American at Bama. So Parker Brailsford's gotten it done with Washington and with Alabama, getting recognized as all-conference player. It's impressive. Real impressive 40 time, 4.95 40 time. That's elite speed at center, folks. He started all 15 games as a freshman, 2 career sacks allowed, only 6 quarterback hits, and he's in over 1,600 passing snaps, 42 career starts, coach, with 2,600 plus reps in his career. A lot of work, and he's a redshirt junior. So, but I mean, Parker Brailsford has seen a lot of football already, and he's shown out very well. Let's talk about what you like about him.
Well, yeah, he's an alum from the same high school as my cousin Jaden Swink, Parker Brailsford from Saguaro High School in Arizona. It's a powerhouse, program in that state. And my cousin's still around the program a little bit, doing some different things every now and again. And Parker came through a little bit later than he did. He was probably around in 8th grade or so when my cousin was a senior, so he didn't really get to know him very much. But he knows he's an absolute workout warrior. I mean, he is just made in the weight room, and he bench presses 505 pounds and squats 675. Which we'll talk about some guys, in other position groups that are even, hardier in those areas. But this is a very, very teched up, strong young man. And he's another seasoned veteran. He's got over 40 starts. He started in that national championship game versus University of Michigan. He was Washington's starting center that year. So, I mean, he's got proven durability. And he's playing a little right guard. So, outside of the of Connor Lew and Jake Slaughter, who are true centers, Parker Brailsford does have a little bit of time in another position that offer a little bit of position versatility. Not a ton. There's other guys that we will talk about that even offer more. But he's another great detector of blitz and stunts, a communicator, can really, atone for a stunt and blitz game. He's a zone blocking technician. He's played for Kalen DeBoer, his whole time in college, whether it be University of Washington for the Huskies or at the University of Alabama for the Tide. And it's a gap zone team, and they are he's really good technically in that kind of blocking scheme specifically. He can bring that to the table. We talked about his weight room ethic and work ethic and the tone that he sets there.
Yeah.
And he's got great movement skills. You have to be when you're his size. When you're truly an undersized center, you've got to be able to move, and he certainly can. And he can climb with the best of them to that second level, which is something that you need to be able to do when you are a little bit more diminutive out there. But a very explosive player, plays with a hard rubbing motor. A lot of grit factor here, Drew. A lot of grit factor here.
Yeah, and we know the Lions like him a lot, and there's a lot to like. Everything you illustrate here is 100% true. But as soon as you look at those specs, 6'2", 290, there's concerns there. Let's talk about those.
You hit the spike square on the face, Drew. He's got significant size concerns. We played a long time, here with an undersized center by the name of Dominic Raiola.
Very true.
A long time. I mean, we're talking about a guy that was like barely 6'1" in the 280s. 280s to 300 is kind of the area he lived in. And there was a couple times he made the Pro Bowl. Mm-hmm. He was a battler for the Lions, but that's just what he was, a battler. Were the Lions great during that stretch? They weren't very good at all. So now that means because it was Dominic Raiola's fault and we had a problem with a small center. That's not what we're saying at all. But there are size concerns. There's going to be times when, okay, let's just talk. We've been bringing the names up, the same names over and over and over, but these are the clear and present. Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, these kinds of defensive tackles, these the kinds of defensive linemen that can absolutely pound on you. Yeah. These are the individuals that he is going to have to be able to be able to block. And can he endure that interior surge on the NFL when you're really getting blitz on the Engage 8 blitz? If you're a Madden fan, can he endure that kind of thing and hold up? That's a great concern. He's going to probably have to be a full-time combo player. He's going to have to be a gap zone guy. I mean, if you're going to work with him, I mean, to have him go one-on-one and base and post on people, I'm not so sure that's going to be something you can really do with Parker Brailsford, at least early on. He's played his entire career, with some zone concepts with Kalen DeBoer, at Washington or whether it's Alabama. So there's some scheme versatility that he may not be as connected to, like we said, some of the gap power type of schemes are probably not things that he has shown a lot of in the last 3-4 years of his career. He's been more of a zone guy. So that's something to be looked at as well, too. You got to look at your running concepts and is he a fit there? But anchor is going to be a concern, Drew. It's just he is very diminutive for this position. You can almost just see it right there. He looks small out there.
Yeah.
And he's going to get over aggressive. He's going to have to play over aggressive at times, which means he's going to clutch and grab and probably get some holding calls. I'm just not so sure. I really like Parker Brailsford, and I'm all about the Lions acquiring him as a depth to work into center interior lineman on day 3. I'm perfectly cool with that. And I think, again, Drew, like I said, I mean, it's no fault to us. We're amateur fans, just trying to spread the gospel here and give some people some level-headed, information about some of these position groups. Is Parker Brailsford and a guy like maybe Sam Hutch, have they probably really flipped kind of, where they are on the board, so to speak? Probably. Parker Brailsford's just, people are looking at that size now. You wait and see what he does at the combine and in his pro days, because he's going to do ridiculous things in the lifts and some of those kinds of things. His 225, rep on the bench is going to be, I think, pretty doggone impressive. But, just outside of great work ethic. He brings those kinds of things to the table. I do not see a day one starter, though. No, I don't.
Yeah, I agree with you, Coach. And at face value, I mean, I'm going to trust Brad Holmes on this. If he takes him, then okay, then he sees something I'm not, and they see the potential there. But I see a fantastic zone blocker, and in that scheme, Parker Brailsford will absolutely flourish. That's not the scheme the Lions play. It's not the scheme a lot of teams play. So, when you play zone, like that, you actually want lighter linemen, and it pays into right into his wheelhouse there. I am impressed though. Obviously, students can transfer any time now. The NIL, I get it, but I do like the fact that the reason he did was he followed his coach, and furthermore, and that shows me there's some loyalty there, there's some dedication, whatever you want to call it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe just I don't think he was riding the coattails. I believe he really was dedicated to being with his coach and loved playing for Kalen DeBoer and wanted to continue to do so, and he had the right to do it, and he did it. I like that. I like that about him, and everything I read about him and hear from him is it's all positive. So it's good. But again, can he put on any additional weight? Can he adapt to a typical more of a power set scheme? I don't know. We'll see. But like you said, I agree. The combine, he's going to be very impressive, and that's where he's gonna make a lot of decisions difficult. We'll put it that way. I think for some teams that are looking at center. Let's talk about our number 4 prospect, Coach.
We have at 4 Logan Jones out of the University of Iowa, a place that has cultivated many, many men of the trenches that have been phenomenal NFL football players in Iowa City, Iowa. 6'3", 302 senior. So we're looking at a guy that's very, very similar in stature to Connor Lew of Auburn. This is the Remington Award winner, folks. This is the college football's as voted upon the top center in college football out of Council Bluffs, Iowa. So from that western side of Iowa there, near Omaha, Nebraska. 3-sport athlete in high school. He was an all-stater in football, and he was an all-state basketball player. So this is an athletic kid, and I think he was a shot and disc state champion in the state of Iowa as well. He runs a 4.90 40. So this is another real athletic center prospect. 3-time All-Big Ten player, 2-time All-American. He played in all 52 games he possibly could have at the University of Iowa. He played in all of them. So, and he started 51 of them. This is another extremely durable, extremely well-seasoned football player. So another guy that is kind of good to go, Drew. He's ready to play football.
Oh, yeah.
Is it at the NFL level as a starter? Well, he's going to have to prove those, he's going to have to prove his chops on that a little bit. Yeah. But this is a really impressive guy that way. 3 career sacks, 2 career quarterback hits, and 21 pressures, and over 1,200 passing snaps. So another really well-decorated, really well-seasoned center prospect coming into the draft here, Drew.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, Coach, I like Logan Jones a lot. I like him a lot on day 3, but I really, really like his game. He is an outstanding athlete. He's very diverse in terms of he has a diverse set of athletic skills. He's faster than Brailsford, and quite frankly has a frame that maybe would be more adept at adding another 15, 20 pounds on him. But to run a 4.9 40, unreal. He started his career D tackle, which is very interesting, and I love it because he understands the opposite side of it. It's like when you have a receiver who was a corner or vice versa. That's nothing but a plus there. You mentally know the tricks, so you were able to counter that better. And he likely possesses the capability to be position versatile, meaning he could move to guard. So that being said, I would think he'd be able, if he can put on the additional pounds and still maintain that athleticism. My goodness, this is going to be a tremendous football player. He's a heavy finisher. He's an aggressive run blocker. He's from Iowa. He has still had 1,200 passing reps, but as a senior in 52 games, he started 51. They were running the ball over in Iowa at Kinnick Stadium. We know that. He's demonstrated excellent durability. He's outstanding he has an outstanding to elite anchor capability, and he's just a real intuitive, natural athlete. You want to talk about getting somewhat like a mold of clay to mold into the center you want. He has everything there. Can he put it all together? I think he's got a shot, Coach.
Yeah, no, absolutely does. He's a very good athlete. He's an NFL caliber athlete as an offensive lineman. He brings that defensive lineman mentality and athletic ability to the table, that basketball player athletic ability to the table, and a guy that you can just tell. You can tell even in this photo against when they're playing Minnesota here. You can just tell his frame is different than Parker Brailsford's, and he's just denser in the lower half, which is going to allow him to fill in and probably put a 1 in front of that 2 real easy. And then at 6'3", 312, you're cooking with fire. At least you're cooking with fire. But he's not perfect either, Drew. He is definitely not perfect. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, a zone-heavy experience at Iowa, right? So he's going to need some technical refinement. Now, how quickly he'll pick up on that, that remains to be seen. But he definitely will need to work on that. Heavy blitz and stun schemes have bothered him despite his good numbers. So he's been able to counter that. Now, I don't know. Is that because I think
it can be scheme related. It might not be his fault.
Exactly, and the fact that he's able to recover, even if he does have a wrong read, that speaks to his athleticism. But yeah, it's certainly something to look at. Probably requires a lot more in-depth scouting that our good friends at Allen Park are doing in Detroit right now, I'm sure. But at the end of the day, it could be an issue. It's something to watch. He's lighter framed, as we've talked about, right? And he may need to address mass.
That's a point of emphasis. That's going to have to get better.
Absolutely. And he can play high and get back a little bit. So again, pad level, got to watch that. Could experience some growing pains if he's pressed into early duty. So, and that's where when I'm saying day 3, that's where I'm kind of seeing him. Now he may jump into day 2, Coach. I don't know, but likely early day 3, maybe late day 2 is where I'm seeing him. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, and this would be a player. Ideally, he would maybe starting later in the year. That's kind of where you see Logan Jones, kind of this developmental starter that by year 2 is competing to be the starting center or is the starting center, and by year 3 has taken the position over, and now you're starting to evaluate him as the extension material or not. That's kind of the track that Logan Jones should be following and should be somewhere, I'm guessing, in the day or the round 3 to round 4 area. And I'm not the greatest forecaster of that, but that's where I would see him in the most perfect of worlds.
Yeah,
Does that fit the Detroit Lions plan at center? There's pressure. We know that there's pressure to win in Allen Park and in Ford Field. Does that mean you can't do that with a rookie center? Absolutely not. You could. You certainly could. Do I see that be a forecasted path for Logan Jones in Detroit? No, but I like Logan Jones as a Lion. I don't necessarily think that's a bad fit potentially, but I don't see it as likely either. I think that we are going to look at this position in the draft, but I am not so sure we're going to get our starter via the draft.
That's a great point, Coach. And it's a very, very viable possibility. So it's going to be interesting how this plays out, whether they address it in free agency or whether they go early or whether they wait till day 3. We'll see. Our number
through. Who do we got at number 5?
Yeah, and guy I really like, and a lot of folks saw a lot of him because he's from the University of Indiana. It's Pat Coogan, 6'5", 311-pound redshirt senior. So a little bit bigger, a little bit taller, a little more experienced, but a lot to like about Pat Coogan. He's from Palos Heights, Illinois. He was the huge part, the anchor of that offensive line, the 2025 national champion Indiana Hoosiers. Did you think we'd be saying that in football, Coach? I didn't, but at the end of the day,
sure.
No. He did transfer from Notre Dame, made 26 starts, 13 at left guard and 13 at center for the Fighting Irish. So we talked about position versatility, a lot of position versatility.
He beat Indiana last year.
Yeah, there you go. So 2025 All Big Ten at Indiana this year. He was the 2026 Rose Bowl MVP with the Hoosiers and 2 career sacks allowed, 9 quarterback hits, and 1,300 passing snaps. Man, you look at that, and Pat Coogan's a nice-looking football player, Coach. Talk about what you like about him.
Well, I mean, you just see, right, that he's a bigger boy. I mean, that's just a bigger kid than what we've been talking about. Yeah. You know, that frame looks like just denser and bigger, sort of like Jake Slaughter, but it's bigger and thicker than that even yet. And he may have the best hand usage of any of the center prospects that we've talked about. You know, and that's something that Jake Slaughter really battles with, is those advanced hand fighters and how he uses hands. Pat Coogan is a hand master. He is an outstanding hand fighter as an offensive lineman. He's got a couple of different perspectives. I mean, he's done this as, yes, the center for a long period of time, but also at left guard. He started his career at left guard with the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. So he started, the bulk of his career was at the University of Notre Dame up in South Bend. He then transferred down to Bloomington for that 5th year, where he was truly just a center by that point in time. But he plays with a great anchor, and he's a good combo partner. He'd be a real good doubles partner, a double team guy in zone concepts and zone schemes and gap schemes. And you can just kind of tell, he's a big, thick trunked guy. And he's another, real strong processor of the game. He can really kind of call out those stunts and blitzes really, really well. Like I said, a master technician with his hands and his feet. He's not the most natural athlete in the world. His numbers don't pop like we talked with Logan Jones or with Parker Brailsford. But, he's just an absolute technician. And he plays really strong. Plays a strong physical game. Another guy that's a grit factor guy, Drew. Another grit factor guy.
Yeah, I tell you what, I really like Pat Coogan. I like him probably earlier on day 3, but oh boy, I think I'm intrigued by him. Obviously, when you play in the national championship and you have that kind of success, you're going to stand out. But man, Pat Coogan's a nice player, but Coach, he's got some things he's got to work on. Let's talk about him.
Well, he can get a little hung up. He's a bigger kid. He's bigger than a lot of these other guys that we've talked about. He's 6'5", 311. So, you're talking about a guy that could maybe go up and hit the 20 mark, maybe, and be 6'5", 320, which is, that's a lot of center. That's a guy that can definitely start in this league at that kind of size. But in doing so, he's going to get a little high at times. And when you play high, that's when you can get driven back and kind of get stalemated and can kind of not initiate the surge that you need to get movement. That could become an issue for him. He did lose his starting left guard, job at Notre Dame. I mean, he was a starter until he wasn't. And then he was, there was a good 5, 6, 7 games there. He wasn't playing much. And outside of special teams, and he found his way back onto the field in South Bend for Marcus Freeman and the Fighting Irish at center, and he did a fantastic job with that, and got to the national championship game last year with the Fighting Irish and losing to the Buckeyes. And this past year, he was able to get back there with another school out of the state of Indiana, this time winning it. But he's not the athlete that a Logan Jones is, or even really a Connor Lew. His athleticism is a little bit more limited, so he can struggle with some of those kinds of things in the line of scrimmage, especially in the way of a real crafty pass rusher or in a real sophisticated blitz scheme. He's going to get upright and he's going to clutch. He's going to get his hands wrapped up around shoulder pads and get outside the frame and outside the numbers and and get some hankies tossed at him, at least earlier on in his career. It's very likely when he struggles with leverage, that's what's going to happen. But yeah, Drew, you hit the nail on the head. I think in a lot of ways, this would be a perfect diamond. And you don't want to call almost a diamond in the rough, because you know what you're getting with Pat Coogan, and he's a highly, highly decorated and well-known football player. But he would be one of those Brad Holmes day 3 guys that just winds up starting and being a stud right out of the get-go, and is like a Pro Bowler by year 2, and he was a 6th round pick or something like that. I think he could go high. Could very well go higher than the 6th round. And like I said, Drew, we work at these rankings pretty fastidiously. We are not scouts, so we are reliant on some collected data as well as what we can put in on our own via our own video search. Is Pat Coogan the number 5 center? He could be the number 2 center. He could be the number 8 center. It's all kind of relative in those spots. But the fact that he can play some left guard, also tells me he could possibly be a Detroit Lion. There's a possibility there. There really is. There's a lot of links that you could put with Pat Coogan with the Lions.
Yeah, no doubt. And he's definitely a name to watch. So fans, keep an eye on him. Watch him. Let's see how he does. Let's see his workouts. A guy like Coogan is a guy you do want to see the workout, because, like, for instance, like Brailsford, you're going to see a workout warrior. The concern there is with the size and everything. Will it translate to the NFL? Got to dig deeper. With a Coogan, you can see he's physically there. He's ready, and technique wise, he's there. Can he athletically handle it? Well, if he can show that and demonstrate that at the combine, he certainly has demonstrated great play on tape. That's going to ease a lot of concerns too. So a guy like Coogan could really benefit from a good workout and certainly a good pro day. So yeah, looking forward to that, Coach. We're going to jump into our dark horses now, Coach. And it looks like we're starting with a couple that I picked out. And I tell you what, when we did this, you mentioned it earlier, we got on this quickly, and a lot of the rankings are going to change now. Sam Hecht from Kansas State University, KSU, is a guy that is climbing the boards right now. I've seen him, actually Pro Football Focus has him at number 2 now. So there it is. He's already climbing the boards, and wait till the combine and the pro day. But let's talk about him real quick. He's from Shawnee, Kansas, so local, 2-time All Big 12 player, Senior Bowl invitee, Shrine Bowl invitee. Here's a good one. No career sacks allowed. That is huge. He's 6'4", 300 pounds. He's a senior. He allowed 1 quarterback hit and 19 pressures and 850 passing snaps. He has over 1,600 reps at center, and his stock is skyrocketing. He's ranked. He's a number 3 center prospect by many analysts. And like I said, even before we recorded, I checked. Yeah, PFF has him at number 2. So he's climbing the boards. What do we like about him? Well, he's demonstrated real good movement skills. He plays with great competitive urgency. He's another one, a good combo partner with that capability to climb. That is so important. To be able to get to that second level and be able to pick up the next guy, that is huge. He's been a prolifically clean pass blocker in college. No career sacks allowed. That speaks to it right there. Coach, he's got some issues. He's somewhat lighter in frame. Yeah, he could stand to add some mass. We've taught pretty much almost all of the prospects, maybe with the exception of Coogan, really need to put on another 15, maybe 20 pounds in some cases. Hecht isn't an exception there. He needs to build up some bulk too. And he has a modest anchor heading into the NFL. So that's something he's going to have to work on. The question is about him is he more athletic than powerful? Well, at this point, yeah, he is. But he's both, but we're going to see which one's going to stand out and help him more in the NFL. Can he hang with the biggest and baddest interior defensive lineman? We're going to find out. But I'll tell you what, Coach, I'd like to get your thoughts before we jump to the next one. But Sam Hecht is a very intriguing prospect, and he's climbing the boards. He could be in play early, maybe on day 2. We'll see. But what are your thoughts?
Well, you can evolve scheme to involve your center in the run game, and in a lot of ways, they're going to be as good as their partners in those guard positions. But I mean, in pass blocking, you've got to bring something to the table, and he is amazing. He was amazing at Manhattan, Kansas, in regards to his pass blocking. So he really made a name for himself at the Senior Bowl one-on-ones and then in those practice sessions. I mean, he was just utterly dominant. He was just owning defensive tackle prospects.
He didn't lose a battle, did he?
He just went up.
Yeah.
His trajectory just skyrocketed. So, I mean, this folks is going to be one of the first names called, as far as the center position goes in the draft. Likely day 2. He's likely day 2 pick. Would the Lions have to look at 50 to get him? Maybe. I mean, it's possible. Would you look at him at 50 if you're the Lions? We have a lot of things that we're looking at right now, and to be one of our top 50 picks, be Sam Hetched. I wouldn't have thought that, at least at the very on the outside of things, but he is in and around there. This would be a guy that they would have to trade back and definitely get a higher third-round pick to be able to consider him, unless there's something that a box that remains unchecked, and he would drift into the 4th round or something like that. Sam Hetched is likely to play somewhere else and not the Lions. But yeah, I think there's a lot to like with him.
Yeah, he's a nice football player. And my second dark horse candidate coach is Luke Pettibone out of Florida State, 6'2", 310-pound redshirt senior, grandson of Richie Pettibone, right? So there's some lineage there in the NFL. So he understands. He knows a little bit about what he's getting into. 4-star prospect out of Annapolis, Maryland, transferred from Wake Forest. I mentioned he's the grandson of Richie Pettibone. He started 35 games between Wake Forest and Florida State, has over 2,300 reps at center in his career. He's an All-American at Florida State, 2-time All-ACC at both Wake and Florida State. That's impressive. Allowed 4 career sacks, 4 quarterback hits, and 11 hurries and over 1,300 passing snaps. That's very impressive as well. His strengths, he's got a real high IQ. He's a football processor. Another one of those super sleuth centers, right, that can designate blitzes and stunts.
He's doing it right there.
Yeah, exactly. And he's a football kid. It's in his blood. He's from a football family. So that he's been around it his whole life. He's a very good technician in both the run and pass phases. And functionally, he's competitive and durable. And you can't ask for more than that. What does he have to work on, though? Again, limited in size and speed. Can he put a little more weight on? Probably a little bit, but he's only 6'2". So, like Pat Coogan's 6'5", right? So big difference there. Athletic limitations are a concern, and mostly regarding his anchor and that bull pass rush protection. Can he hold up in that? Remains to be seen, but he's a pretty stout lineman. He's likely to struggle one-on-one with those high-caliber interior D tackles in the NFL. So he's going to need a little help there and get a little stronger. And he's not a scheme-versatile fit for man-based schemes. So there's some things to work on, some concerns. But I think he's a pretty solid prospect, Coach. I think he's definitely going to get drafted in day 3.
Yeah, he is, and he's got the pedigree. Pettibone has got the pedigree.
Yeah.
His grandfather was a great defensive coach in the NFL, and he at 6'2", 310. Yeah, I mean his ceiling is very low in regards to his size and frame. You can just kind of see he's pretty thick right there. Maybe 5 more pounds, 6'2", 315, and that sounds about right anyway. But his tires are definitely getting kicked, Drew. As you had said, his tires are definitely getting kicked. Luke Pettibone's getting an opportunity to play.
Coach, let's talk about who you have as dark horses. Here's your first one.
Well, we're not leaving too far here from the Sports Peninsula. We're going to go with Matt Gulbin, actually a former teammate of Luke Pettibone's at Wake Forest. A native of Wilton, Connecticut. He also transferred from Wake Forest University in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Did not follow Luke to Florida State down in Tallahassee. Instead, he went to Michigan State and East Lansing. He played in 52 games between Wake Forest and MSU, so he's played in all of his football games. He started at left guard, right guard, and center at Wake Forest. 3 different positions. And he was an all-ACC guard for the Demon Deacons. In fact, I think 2 different times he finished as a top 5 graded guard in the ACC. So this is a person that could evolve and play guard in the NFL. through the center prospect. He came in here as with Jonathan Smith, and instantly it was a captain at MSU in his first and only year here in East Lansing. Played every snap on offense for the Spartans. So he did things at two different schools. Offers exceptional positional versatility. This is a true utility guy. This is a reason why he is going to be drafted pretty highly. The other thing I really also think is a strength is he's 6'4", 312. We are talking about a little more of an evolved frame, at least from the upper body sense, than Jake Slaughter, but not not unlike him. He's a little just thicker than that, which is really good to see. He if he puts on another 5 to 8 pounds, you're talking about a really big and versatile football player. Great physical man blocker, very good run anchor. And you can kind of see it in that frame right there too. There's a little room to grow here in those legs, but you can see that he's heavy-handed and he's got a very committed. He's a committed run blocker with a good anchor. Has high caliber football IQ, and is an awareness guy. When you played 3 different positions, that's gonna be a telling trait of yours. Functional athleticism's a tad limited. He is not an elite caliber athlete, and he's got to avoid that jack of all trades, master of none label, because that's just going to get you bounced around the league. You're going to be able to play. You're probably going to play for 5-6 years, but your suitcase is going to have a lot of stickers on it, Drew. You're going to be traveling the land, as they would say. Needs some refinement if he's going to be your starting center. I would really love to see the Lions grab a guy like this, but it's it'd be I just don't know if they have the luxury of drafting someone that is not ready to play center, but ultimately you're drafting him to be center. So that would be my concern here. But Matt Golbin's getting drafted.
And Coach, your son David attends state, and you get to see a lot of games. You've been in person there. Your personal thoughts on Golbin?
Yeah, I mean, the plight of the Spartans' season this past year certainly was not because of the center position, although he did get hurt a little bit. He did, there was a couple of times that he played banged up. And were we getting the greatest version of Matt Golbin? Well, you got every snap out of him. If there was one thing you got from Matt Golbin, is you got him. He was there every single snap, every single play of of the game. So extremely durable. I think there's a lot to like there. Especially is probably a day 3 prospect. He's a guy that they've talked about on day 2, but I see more of a day 3 guy, but I see an early day 3 guy. I see a round 4 player.
That versatility speaks volumes. Yeah, that's going to be one to watch. And then your other candidate, Coach.
Other candidate, we're staying, close to home and close to the heart, Drew, for you and I. And actually, here's a photo of him walking off the field of that game that we saw him play in at Ford Field, the MAC championship game. From the MAC champion and Myrtle Beach Bowl champion, Western Michigan Broncos. We're talking about Raheem Anderson II, 6'2", 321-pound redshirt senior, coming to the Western Michigan Broncos via the national champion University of Michigan Wolverines and Cass Tech Technicians. He's from the city of Detroit, so I mean that's kind of a cool thing, especially if if you're thinking Lions a little bit here. He's all about this state here. Went to Western, finished at Western, out of Cass Tech. He went to U of M, was a 4-year letter winner there, and actually gets he won a national championship. He's part of the national championship team. So this is a really well decorated football player. All MAC center at Western Michigan, graduated from Michigan in 3.5 years. So this is a sharp kid. His grades skyrocketed at Western. Once he was able to get on the field and really sink into a position, he really ran with it. And he was the anchor, of this offensive line that led Western. The Western offense to the MAC and Myrtle Beach Bowl titles. So, very, very big part of that offense's success. Thick, stout anchor. I mean, you can, 6'2", 321. He's got the pro anchor. He doesn't. I don't think you're concerned about his mass at all. And he's an excellent combo partner. He's a double team dream. He can be that post and drive double team partner guy all day long. He's heavy-handed, big time football puncher, really, really active and good in the run game in Kalamazoo for the Broncos. And did that. That was his calling card too at the University of Michigan. He really kind of followed in the footsteps of Pro Bowl and All-Pro guard Michael Onwenu. In a lot of ways, he was that position. He played center and guard at Cass. He came to U of M, and that was kind of what I think a lot of people thought they saw in Raheem was a Mike Onwenu type. He's not quite that big. Mm-hmm. He's not quite that big, but that's kind of the type of framed player we're looking at in a little bit diminutive size. But he's not a tremendous natural athlete. Those numbers are not going to pop off the screen. He is not likely to wow people in a lot of areas at the combine. He's got some length concerns. He's 6'2", Pettibones, also a shorter caliber player. But those length concerns could be an issue in pass protection, especially when you're somewhat limited as an athlete. His quickness and speed is going to get put to the test right away. Can he hold up? That's going to be something of concern. And can he handle the surge, the interior surge of the NFL? Going to have to prove that pretty quick in camp. Raheem Anderson could be a day 3 pick. He could be a UDFA. I think he's getting an opportunity to make it in the NFL.
Well, I'll tell you what, I agree with you. Certainly, if he's a UDFA, I would like to think if the Lions hadn't addressed the position, quite frankly, if they hadn't addressed the position, I would think he'd be someone they're definitely going to look at. They're going to look at him on day 3 too. I do like his anchor, like you said, and he's already there with the size. He's going to have to show the strength and athleticism on tape and in camp too, and really the combine and his pro day are going to be very important to a guy like Raheem Anderson. If he can show some niche, he doesn't have to be, like you said, he doesn't have to be an uber athlete, but if he can show some niche, strides like in the weight at the bench, maybe it depends on the situation, but depending on the team, and I certainly would think the Lions would look at him, but there's a lot to like about Raheem Anderson. So, Coach, we're wrapping up the center position, but overall, before we head out, we know the Lions need a center. We know Graham Glasgow is on the roster still. We don't know what that's going to mean. We don't know, is he gonna stick around for another year? Indication, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not an insider, but certainly it looks like there's a better chance of him staying than Taylor Decker. Put it that way. Can he give you one more year where you had the luxury, like to your point, of the Lions taking a guy like a Jones or a Coogan or even an Anderson and saying, hey, you're gonna watch and learn for a year and then you're our guy next year? I don't know. It depends. But will the Lions address it in free agency? They could. You see the names like Tyler Linderbaum, although both of us don't think that's even going to be a possibility. But there's guys out there that are available too. So, we're going to trust Brad Holmes on this process at the center position. But there's no question they have to address it this year, Coach. Your final thoughts before we close it out?
Yeah, well, they finally get to. I mean, and this is not in any way, shape, or form a slight of Frank Ragnow, but Frank kind of handcuffed us, and we weren't able to really address this last year. And what we would love, and that was in the spirit of him hopefully being able to come back and play for us. In the end, that just wasn't meant to be, because that's what we would want. We would want Frank Ragnow to be our center right now, and not really worried about this a little bit. But we get to address that this year. Is it, could it be Linderbaum or McGovern or Cade Mays in free agency? Could it be a guy that could get cut like Yeldy Froholt from the Arizona Cardinals? That's a possibility. I think there's a great likelihood that it is probably one of those names that we really look to try to do that, so we can kind of fortify the guard and work on that offensive tackle position that looks like is going to be something of need as well. supposedly we're doing a lot of diligence there as well at the tackle spot. So, does this draft, like you said, it has some nice prospects and some guys that we didn't even talk about. Is there that surefire day one starter? There could be a few of them, I suppose.
Yeah.
But does it just look like that with a snap of a finger? No. So, I think the Lions are going to look to probably see a seasoned veteran in there first, with this position being addressed in the draft.
Can't wait to see how it unfolds, Coach. I'm looking forward to doing the rest of these position groups leading up to that draft on April 23rd in Pittsburgh. Troy hosted that 2 years ago, which was awesome. You got to be there for the whole thing, and it was fantastic. Can't wait for the draft, but it's going to be really interesting to see what the Lions do. Thanks for watching, everybody. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. We're going to be bringing you draft content all the way up to that draft, including a first-round mock draft, which we do every year annually. Been pretty accurate. No one's 100%. You can't predict every trade and what have you, but it's been a lot of fun, and we're going to continue to do that in season 9 here. So for Coach Andy Shield, I'm Drew. Take care, everybody. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you soon. This has been the Sports Peninsula Podcast. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel on YouTube. You can also follow us on X as well as Facebook so you don't miss an episode. When you want to hear all about sports in the great state of Michigan, there is only one Sports Peninsula Podcast.